Hello everyone. So today we will start the fifth module in this subject, that is RTOS and IDE for embedded system design. RTOS stands for real-time operating system and IDE is the integrated development environment for embedded system design. So what we have seen in the previous topics about the embedded systems, we have seen the concepts of embedded systems, the different components involved in the embedded system design, the different design concepts of embedded system, right? And now we are going to see RTOS and IDE for embedded system design. So what we have seen is that the embedded firmware design, it can have an operating system or it may not have an operating system, like in a super loop based approach or the conventional procedural based approach, wherein a program is written in an infinite loop and it just uh, executes continuously. In such cases where the timing is not critical, we do not need an operating system. Uh, but in certain cases where maybe you have certain constraints with respect to time, and you need to prioritize certain tasks or processes, and where you need to schedule certain processes by following certain scheduling techniques, in such cases we need an operating system. And in that operating system, again, that operating system may be a general purpose operating system or a real-time operating system. Okay, but for embedded system design, in certain applications, we require real-time operating systems. So this particular topic, RTOS and IDE, it's in the fifth module of your subject, and this is the syllabus contents, rather we can say the syllabus mentioned. We have operating system basics, then the types of operating systems, then the task, process, and threads. We are going to study POSIX threads. There are different kinds of threads: POSIX threads, Win32 threads, Java threads, and other things. We are going to study only POSIX threads with one example program. Then thread preemption, preemptive task scheduling techniques, then task communication, then task synchronization issues, racing and deadlock. So all these things, actually you have studied the basics of this in the subject operating systems. We will just try to revisit them with some newer concepts. Then you also have concept of binary and counting semaphores. We are going to study semaphores, binary semaphores and counting semaphores. In that, we will study mutex, one example of mutex semaphore without a program. Okay. Then we have the concept of how to choose an RTOS among the different operating systems available, which one to choose and what are the criteria in choosing an RTOS. Then we will see integration and testing of embedded hardware and firmware, how it can be done in different ways. Then embedded system development environment, the block diagram of that. Okay. So then there are different concepts: disassembler or decompiler, simulator, emulator, and other debugging techniques. Okay. So we will see these things one by one. The first one we have is operating system basics. You have studied a separate subject, operating system. The operating system, it acts as a bridge between the user applications or tasks and the underlying system resources through a set of system functionalities and services. So as we already know, this operating system is a software on which the other application software are installed. So this operating system, it manages the system resources, including the memory, the CPU, that is the processor, and other things, and makes them available to the user applications or tasks on a need basis. The primary functions of an operating system are: make the system convenient to use, then organize and manage the system resources efficiently and correctly. So these are the primary functions of an operating system. To make the system convenient to use, so among the different components that you have connected to the system, different IO devices that you have connected, different memory resources maybe you have connected. So you have to make the system convenient to use, then organize and manage the system resources efficiently and correctly. So these are the primary functions of an operating system. So this gives architecture of an operating system. Okay, you might be asked to explain the architecture of an operating system. You need to draw this diagram. So wherein you have the underlying hardware. Okay, so above this you have the kernel services, different kernel services like memory management, process management, time management, file system management, IO system management. Then you have the user applications, which are actually based on the kernel services. So these kernel services are interfaced to the underlying hardware through the device driver interface. Then the user applications are interfaced to the kernel services through API, that is application programming interface. So these kernel services, they form the core part of your operating system. So, and most of these services you have briefly studied maybe in operating system. So again, we will try to revise them. So the kernel is the central part of the operating system, or you can call the kernel is the core of the operating system, and it is responsible for managing the system resources and the communication among the hardware and other system services. Okay, so the kernel acts as the abstraction layer between the system resources and the user applications. So if at all the user applications have to access the system resources, it has to happen through the kernel. The kernel contains a set of system libraries and services. Okay, so for a general purpose operating system, the kernel contains different services for handling the following, like you have different management or different services: process management, then primary memory management, file system management, IO system or IO device management, then secondary storage management, then the protection systems, and the interrupt handler. So we will see each of these one by one. The first one is process management. So this process management deals with managing the processes or task. You know what is a process? So process means an execution, right? So that to deal with that, when there are many processes or there are many tasks, to manage that, we need a service called process management. So this includes different processes like setting up the memory space for the process. Okay, so for each process you need to set up certain memory space, then loading the process's code into the memory space, allocating the system resources to the process, scheduling and managing the execution of the process. Scheduling in the sense granting the CPU access to the process and managing the execution of the process. Then setting up and managing the process control block. So you know that each process has got a process control block which contains its IDs and different registers, with different things that are involved with that particular process. To set up and manage that process control block, which is used in turn in scheduling the process, right? Then inter-process communication and synchronization. When there are more than one processes running, there has to be a proper communication between these processes and they have to be synchronized. So that is also managed by this process management task. Then process termination or deletion. So starting from the creation of the process, then running it, allocating system resources, setting up PCB, communication between them, until the termination or deletion of the process. So all these, it is managed by the process management. Next, we have memory management. When it comes to memory management, we call it primary memory management. So when we refer to primary memory, we actually refer to the RAM, that is the volatile memory, where processes are loaded and variables and the shared data associated with each process are stored. So it is basically stored in the primary memory, that is the RAM. Uh, the memory management unit, or in short, we call it MMU. It is responsible for these tasks like keeping track of which part of memory area is currently used by which process. So each part of memory, they are reserved actually for some processes. There are two ways of using memory. You can either reserve them or you can use them dynamically. So in both the cases, you need to keep a track of which part of the memory area is being used by which processes that are running. Okay, this memory management unit does that thing. Then allocating and deallocating memory space on a need basis, like dynamic memory allocation. So based whenever a process needs a memory space, it has to be allocated a particular memory space. When it finishes a particular process, it can be deallocated. So that thing is done by this memory management unit. Then we have file system management. So, you know what is a file? File is a collection of related information. So it can be a program file like a source code or an executable exe file, or it may be a text file or an image file or Word documents, you know, or some presentation maybe, or audio video files. It could be anything, right? So it's a file. So the file system management service of a kernel, it is responsible for certain tasks like creation, deletion, and alteration of files. To create a file, to delete a file, alteration means to edit a particular file. Then those files, you know, they can be stored in different directories. We call them in Windows, we call them folders, right? So the generic name for that is directory. So the creation and deletion and alteration of those directories, which contains the files, okay? Saving of files in the secondary storage memory, saving these files in the hard disk, in the disk, you know, that is called the secondary storage memory. Then providing automatic allocation of file space based on the amount of free space available. Okay, so this is also done by file management unit. Based on the amount of free space available, certain file space can be allotted or allocated to particular file. Then providing a flexible naming convention for the files. You know, there are different files, and the file system, they will be different for different operating systems, and for different types of files there will be different conventions, right, or different extensions. You will have a file name followed by a dot followed by the type of the file. The type of the file, you know, it is indicated by the extension that you indicate in the name of the file. So it follows certain standard. You cannot have your own method of naming a file. In fact, there are certain rules that you need to follow, okay, and those are all defined by this file system management. Then the various file system management operations, they are OS dependent. As I said, you know, it depends on the operating system that you are going to use. For example, the kernel of the DOS operating system, Microsoft DOS operating system, it supports a specific set of file system management operations, which may not be the same as that supported by some other operating system like Unix kernel maybe, or some Linux operating system. Okay, so in both the cases, the file system operations are different. So it is purely dependent on the operating system. So that is about the file system management. Next, you have IO system or device management. So as we know, you know, we connect different IO devices to your system. So the kernel is responsible for routing the IO requests coming from different user applications to the appropriate IO devices of the system. So those requests for input and output operations, they should be appropriately routed to the particular IO devices. So in a well-structured operating system, the direct accessing of IO devices are not allowed. Okay, and the access to them are provided through a set of API which are exposed by the kernel. As you can see, that APIs, they lie above the kernel, so they are not means direct access is not allowed, and they are provided through an application programming interface which is exposed by the kernel. The kernel maintains a list of all the IO devices of the system. So this list, you know, there are different methods of creating this list. In some cases, in advance, you can have a list of IO devices that may be connected in future. In advance, whenever you boot, you know, it gets a list of all the things that it can support, all the IO devices that it can support. That is one way of having all the IO devices list in advance. The other one is to dynamically update the list of devices as and when a new device is installed. Only when it is installed, you know, it gets added to the list. So that is one way. Okay, so the service device manager of the kernel is responsible for handling all IO device related operations. So there is a service called device manager. It is there in your Windows operating system also. You can see, if you go to that, you can see all the different devices that are connected. Okay, so this is responsible for handling all IO device related operations. Okay. The kernel, it talks to the IO device through a set of low-level system calls, which are implemented in a service called device drivers. So the way in which the kernel talks to the IO device, that is through the device driver. To each device or IO device, there has to be a code, you know, which is used for communication, or which is used to implement the particular operation of the IO, and those are called the device drivers. So that device driver, they are responsible for certain operations, loading and unloading of device drivers, sorry, the device manager, it is responsible for loading and unloading of device drivers, then exchanging information and the system specific control signals to and from the device. Okay. So first of all, it have to load and unload the device drivers as and when new devices are installed, then exchanging the information and system specific control signals to communicate between the devices. IO devices are basically for communication, either to input data or to output data, right? So to do that, the device manager has to send some control signals to the device and from the device. So normally these days, we have plug and play devices where you do not manually install the device drivers. So this device manager is responsible for installing the device drivers. So where it actually loads the device driver whenever you are using it and unloads it when you have unplugged it. Okay. Then you have secondary storage management. Unlike the primary storage, which means RAM, this secondary storage is normally the ROM, which is your hard disk. The secondary storage management, this deals with the managing the secondary storage memory devices, if any, which are connected to the system other than RAM. Okay. The secondary memory is used as a backup medium for programs and data. Since the main memory is volatile, that main memory or primary memory is RAM, which is volatile memory. When the power goes off, it gets erased. So that's why to keep a backup, we use the secondary storage, which retains the memory even when the power is removed. In most of the systems, the secondary storage is kept in disks, that is a hard disk. The secondary storage management service of the kernel, it deals with disk storage allocation, allocating the storage space based on the availability, then disk scheduling, the time interval at which the disk is activated to back up the data. Okay, so at certain intervals of time from your primary memory, some data is put into the secondary memory. That interval, that is called disk scheduling. That is done by this secondary storage management unit. Then there is free disk space management. The available disk space, you have to manage it by allocating it to different things, and how it is managed, that is done by this secondary storage management. Next task or next service you have is the protection system. Most of the modern operating systems are designed in such a way to support multiple users with different levels of access permissions. As you know, even in Windows operating system, you can create different user profiles, right? For different users. If different people are using the same system, you can have different profiles. One can be restricted, another can be allowed to all the users. You can have guest mode also. In that case, there are different types of permissions like admin mode, like administrator, a standard mode or restricted permission mode, which are available in Windows XP. The protection deals with implementing the security policies to restrict the access to both user and system resources by different applications or processors or users. So whenever there is a shared system, if you want to restrict the access to the user resources, to the user or the system resources to different applications or processors, we call it protection. So that means your certain application is protected by unauthorized access. So in multi-user supported operating systems, one user may not be allowed to view or modify the whole or portions of another user's data or profile details. So that is managed by this protection system. In addition, some application may not be granted with the permission to make use of the system resources, right? Some applications cannot directly run, in that case, you need to run it in administrator mode. You have that option in different operating systems. So in that case only, you can access the system resources. So this kind of protection is provided by the protection services running within the kernel. So this is one of the service that runs inside the kernel. And the last one we have is the interrupt handler. So this provides handler mechanism for all external or internal interrupts generated by the system. So those interrupts, they might be from some IO device which require certain attention, or it may be some exceptions that have happened in the system. So whatever, they will generate an interrupt request. So whenever it is generated, they have to be handled properly by running a certain interrupt service routine, right? That thing is done by this interrupt handler service. Okay, so these are the different services that are provided by the kernel. That is coming back to it: process management, primary memory management, file system management, then IO system or device management, secondary storage management, protection systems, and interrupt handler. Okay, so the other things we will see in the next session. So I'll stop for today. Okay.